So we will begin today's class with complex amalgam restorations. So first we will see what are these complex amalgam restorations or the definition of complex amalgam restorations. So complex amalgam restorations are those restorations which are used to replace the missing posterior tooth structure which have been fractured or which are severely involved with caries or existing restorative material. So these restorations are used to replace the missing posterior tooth which have been damaged because of three ways, that is either they are fractured or they are severely involved with caries or with existing restorative materials. And it usually involves the replacement of one or more missing cusps. Now, apart from complex amalgam restorations, we have to also see the definition of pin-retained amalgam restorations. So, pin-retained amalgam restorations are those amalgam restorations requiring one or more pins in the dentine to provide the adequate resistance and retention forms. So, the pins are provided in the dentine so as to obtain more resistance and retention forms for our restoration. Next, we'll see what are the indications for complex amalgam restorations. So first one is if they are used in case of controlled restorations in teeth with questionable pulpal or periodontal prognosis. So in those teeth which we have a doubt in the prognosis if the teeth will survive in the long term, that is questionable pulpal or periodontal prognosis, they are used as control restorations. Second one is indication is they are used as control restorations in teeth with acute or severe caries. So we have to see the long-term prognosis of the teeth with acute or severe caries, and in this case also we can go for complex amalgam restorations as a control restoration. And the third indication is as definitive finite restorations, and finally they can also be used as foundations for full coverage restorations. That is, if you're going for a full crown, we need that full crown as a foundation, we can use a complex amalgam restoration. So the indications are, one is for control restorations in teeth with questionable pulpal or periodontal prognosis. Second one is in control restoration in teeth with acute or severe caries. Third one is they can be used as final, definitive final restorations. And fourth one, they can be used as foundations for full coverage restorations. And again, fifth one, when the patient cannot afford expensive cast restorations. So we can go for cheaper options for the patient when the patient can't pay for the expensive cast restorations. Then we can go for the complex amalgam restorations. And sixth one is in badly broken down non-vital teeth which is requiring endodontic treatment. So when the teeth is badly broken down and it is non-vital, then we can go for the complex amalgam restorations. And seventh indication is in extensive classified restorations. So in very extensive classified restorations also, we can go for this complex amalgam restorations. Then in old and weak patients, these restorations are preferred over the expensive and time-consuming cast restorations. So in old people who are weak, we can go for the complex amalgam restorations over the expensive and time-consuming cast restorations. Now coming to the contraindications of the complex amalgam restorations. Number one, when there is significant occlusal problems. So in malocclusion cases now, we can go for the complex amalgam restorations. Second one is when the teeth cannot be restored properly due to anatomical or functional considerations. So here also it is contraindicated. So first contraindication is when there is significant occlusal problems such as malocclusion, we can't go for complex amalgam restoration because in such cases the occlusal load on this teeth will be very high and the restoration can fail. So first one is when there is significant occlusal problems, we can't go for the complex amalgam. That is first contraindication. Second is when the teeth cannot be properly restored due to anatomical or functional considerations, then also it is contraindicated. The third contraindication is in areas of aesthetic importance for the patient. So in those teeth which is visible outside the mouth when the patient smiles or talk, that is the aesthetic importance of the patient. In such cases also, we have to avoid giving complex amalgam restorations in such areas. So the contraindications, once again, when there is significant occlusal problems, and then number two, when it cannot be properly restored due to anatomical or functional considerations. Number three, in areas of aesthetic importance for the patient. Now, next we'll see what are the advantages of the complex amalgam restorations. So one advantage we have already seen, it is cheaper than the more expensive cast restoration. So that is when the patient has to go for cheaper options, then we can give the complex amalgam restoration. That is one advantage, is that it is cheaper than the cast restorations. And another appointment is these restorations can be, complex amalgam restorations can be completed in one appointment compared to 2 appointments for the cast restorations. So we can save a lot of time for the patient as well as for the dentist. So complex amalgam restorations can be completed in one appointment, but for cast restoration, we need 2 appointments. One is for the preparation of the tooth, and that is for the delivery of the cast restoration. So we require 2 appointments for cast restoration, but complex amalgam restorations can be completed in one appointment. The third advantage is it conserves more tooth material when compared to the cast restoration, because we know for the cast restoration we have to shade the tooth in order to take the impression for a cast restoration. But in the case of complex amalgam restoration, the destruction of tooth structure is very less, and that is another advantage when we compare the complex amalgam restoration over a cast restoration. That is, these complex amalgam restorations, in the case of complex amalgam restorations, it conserves more tooth structure when compared to the cast restoration. And the fourth advantage is the use of pins in complex amalgam restorations helps to increase the resistance and retention of the restoration. So we are using the pins in an complex amalgam restoration, and this use of pins will increase the resistance and retention of the amalgam restoration. So that is about the advantages. Now come to the disadvantages of the complex amalgam restorations. So number one is the proximal contacts and occlusal contacts and anatomy are difficult to achieve in the case of complex amalgam restoration, because we know that complex amalgam restoration is done in a badly proper tooth, so the form of the tooth is destroyed, and because of this, the proximal contacts and occlusal contacts as well as anatomy is difficult to achieve in the case of complex amalgam restoration. So that is one of the disadvantages of a complex amalgam restoration. And number two, the resistance form is more difficult to develop. So that is another disadvantage. The retention form can be developed, but the resistance form, that is the resistance of the tooth to fracture, is more difficult to develop in the case of complex amalgam restoration. Number three, when we are using pins in the case of complex amalgam restorations, in areas where the dentin is very less, here the use of pins can cause dentinal cracks or crease, because the thin dentin is there, and when you are placing the pin, it causes stress on the thin dentin, and this thin dentin can lead to dentinal cracks or crease lines. So that is another disadvantage in the case of complex amalgam restorations. That is, when we are using pins in areas of less dentin, it can cause dentinal cracks or crease lines. And the fourth disadvantage is when you're using the burrs for preparation of the complex amalgam restoration, or we are using the pins in a wrong direction, it can cause exposure of the pulp, or it can lead to perforation of the external tooth form. So when we are using the burrs, if the angulation of the burr is not correct, or the pin angulation is not correct, it can cause a pulpal exposure or perforation of the external tooth surface. And the fifth disadvantage is it can cause decrease in the tensile and transverse strength of amalgam. Because we are using the pins, so these pins can decrease the tensile and transverse strength of the amalgam restrictions. And number 6 of under disadvantage number 6 is when we are using pins on or near to the restriction surface, it can cause micro leakage around the pins. So the use of pins in complex amalgam restrictions can cause micro leakage around the pins. That is another disadvantage of the use of complex amalgam restriction. So next we will see some of the retentive features, or rather secondary retentive features we give in the case of complex amalgam restrictions. So we will see mainly 3 retentive features, that is slots, cores, and locks. So first we'll see what are slots. So slots are the retentive grooves which are given in the dentine in an horizontal plane. So these are retentive grooves which are given in the dentine in a horizontal plane. And the particular burr we use for giving the slot is number 330 burr. And the dimensions of the retentive groove we are giving in the dentine in a horizontal plane is that this retentive groove is 1 millimeter deep. So the depth is 1 millimeter and the width is the width of the number 330 burr. So depth is 1 millimeter, width of the burr is it's the width of the number 330 burr, and it is 0.5 to 1 millimeter inside the dentino-enamel junction. This groove is 0.5 to 1 millimeter inside the dentino-enamel junction. And the length of its groove is 2 millimeter to 4 millimeter according to the distance between the vertical walls. So the groove length is 2 millimeter to 4 millimeter depending on the distance between the vertical walls. So slots are retentive grooves which are given in the dentine in horizontal plane and is given with the number 330 burr, and the width of so the depth of this slot is 1 millimeter and the width is the width of the number 330 burr, and it is 0.5 to 1 millimeter inside the dentine enamel junction. And the length of the slot is 2 millimeter to 4 millimeter depending on the distance between the vertical walls. Next is cores. Cores are also retentive grooves in dentine in a horizontal plane. So as in the case of slots, cores are also retentive grooves in the dentine in an horizontal plane, but the difference is slots, cores are smaller in dimension than the slots. So we can compare the cores of the slots. Cores are smaller in dimension than the slots, and it is given using the number 1/4 burr. So we are seeing slots are given using number 330 burr. Cores are given using number 1/4 burr. So difference is cores are smaller in dimension than the slots, but both are retentive grooves which are given in dentine in an horizontal plane. Coming to the locks. Now locks are retentive grooves which are given in dentine in a vertical plane. So we have seen slots, cores, locks. So slots and cores are retentive grooves given dentine in an horizontal plane, while here there's a difference. Locks are retentive grooves which are given in dentine in a vertical plane. And the burr we used to give the lock is number 169 L burr, 169 L burr. The dimensions of the lock is the depth is 0.5 millimeter deep into the dentine, and the width is 0.2 to 0.3 millimeter wide. So the depth is 0.5 millimeter deep into the dentine, and the width is 0.2 to 0.3 millimeter wide. An example for the locks is the proximal locks which you give in a class 2 cavity for amalgam. That is the bucco, the locks which we give in the bucco-axial and the ligo-axial line angles in the proximal box survey. So the example for locks is the proximal locks we give in a class 2 cavity for amalgam, the bucco-axial and the ligo-axial line angles. Next we come to what are known as amalgam pins. So amalgam pins was first described by Chauvel in 1980. Now these are vertical pores of amalgam in the dentine. So amalgam pins are vertical pores of amalgam. It's not pins, but they are vertical pores of amalgam in the dentine. And these pits in the dentine are shallow and wider than the pinholes. And these pits in the dentine are called dentine chambers. So into this dentine chambers, we fill amalgam. These are called amalgam pins. So the pits in the dentine are shallow and wider than the pinholes. And these pits are called dentine chambers. And we use the inverted cone burr to prepare the pits. And this is 1.2 millimeters in depth. So the depth of the dentine chamber is 1.2 millimeters and the width is 0.5 to 1 millimeter. So the dentine chambers are prepared using the inverted cone burr. The depth is 1 to 2 millimeters in depth and the width is 0.5 to 1 millimeters. And the use of amalgam pins helps to increase the resistance and retention of the restoration. So there are two advantages. One of the use of amalgam pins is it increases the resistance and retention of the restoration. Number two, it also increases the bulk of amalgam. So these are the two advantages. So amalgam pins, as I told you, described by Schavel in 1980, they are vertical pores of amalgam in the dentine. These vertical pores are called dentine chambers, and which are nothing but pits which are shallow and wider than the pinholes. And we use the inverted cone burr to prepare this dentine chambers, which is 1.1 to 2 millimeters in depth and 0.5 to 1 millimeter in width. And the advantages are this amalgam pins increase the resistance and retention of the restoration, and also it increases the bulk of the amalgam restorations. So with that, we'll end today's class and we will continue next week. Thank you.